Welcome to the Nuff Said podcast. This is episode 12 of S1e12 Seeds. I am refrozen Rob Southgate, and with me is
Jagged Jack Wingrosky.
So we've got kind of an ice thing going here because I'm refrozen because we've got the polar vortex, and you're jagged, which I think of like jagged frozen ice. So that seems to work out.
Yeah, we're going with a theme here today.
And on top of that, our villain this week is Blizzard.
Nice.
Oh, so many things just tying together here.
Everybody's been wanting more superheroes.
Yeah. And, let's just jump into it. I'm telling you, I think that they're getting the formula down a lot better. I think that it's great that we saw another supervillain appear here. And I think that we're heading in the right direction. What do you think?
I was excited about this episode. I've been waiting for one like this, since it started.
Okay, so it really hit for you.
It really hit. Finally, you told me to not worry about the pretentiousness of Fitz. It settled down. He kind of came back into his own. It meant just every element, Skye and Coulson, everything was just great.
Yeah, spot on. Well, the Fitz thing is interesting because while I was watching it and I was watching how Fitz was acting, it actually made me think of what you said, where you were like, oh, he's a little pretentious. And I thought, yeah, he's a little pretentious in this one. But see, the other thing, it was like his ego about kind of like getting tough. I think that's where it was tweaking you a little bit. This type of pretentiousness, this like, hey, I'm super smart and I'm here strutting my stuff. I had no problem with that.
Well, remember where we talked about, hey, make them more like that Q character from the Bond series?
Yes.
Although at first I said M, but what it was is make him the best at what he does, and he goes to the academy for the techies,
right?
And by far, even the bad guys in this, they wanted Fitz to come in to solve their problem. It puts him way and above the field,
right?
This is where that's what Fitz and Simmons are supposed to be.
That's what they're supposed to be. I agree exactly. Yeah, this just worked. I got nothing else to say about it. It worked.
Yeah, Wade, he was the operations guy. He did it from his angle. It was like, okay, you get to see the other angle, answered some more story about Skye, just anything you wanted, it was there.
Right. Yeah, and one thing I loved was going to the academy, seeing S.H.I.E.L.D. Academy, finding out more about that. Like, okay, they've got operations and they've got, the science and technology thing. It makes a lot of sense that it would be split up that way.
It does. To me, it was like either a cross between X-Men Academy or even more like Starfleet Academy.
Starfleet Academy is what I was thinking of.
Yeah, because X-Men, it was all, you have all the mutants, where Starfleet Academy is like, you're at ground central, you're like central station.
Right. And you'd have your science officers and your tech officers and your, captains and all those people there, which is what this was, although they have them split at different campuses. I love that there was that rivalry and like they each had their own thing going. One of my favorite moments was when they were talking, I think it was Skye had asked, like, oh, did you get your PhD when you came here? And Simmons says, well, no, you have to have at least one to even get considered.
Right.
I was like, wow, everyone you meet here is going to have a PhD. Every one of them is going to be a big brain, because there were so many of them that were young and that were walking around there that I thought, when I first saw it, I thought, okay, how are they getting recruited in here and what's the deal? Now we know. These aren't just the best and the brightest. These are the brightest.
Right. This is, they say the best of the best.
Yeah, no kidding.
Man, we've been waiting for something like this. This is what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is supposed to be. It's supposed to be about the agents and the cool stuff that they can do.
Right. And we saw it. And it was here. Well, and okay, let's talk about the episode a little bit. So it starts out and it shows these guys swimming in a pool, and then the pool starts to freeze, and the one kid gets up and starts to walk out. And I don't know about you, but I didn't know it was taking place at the S.H.I.E.L.D. Academy, so I didn't know what was going on. And I immediately thought, oh, he's got some kind of superpower and he's freezing the water, right?
Right.
Turns out it wasn't. Turns out it was that device, which, as it went on, we found out was really going on with that But then we saw the kid put on the robe and it had the Shield logo, and I actually like verbally yelled out like, "Oh yes, they're in an academy!"
Yeah, and of course everything goes from there. Within the academy walls, you knew that he was there. That kid was there for a reason. He saved the other two, but my first thought was he had something to do with it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I was thinking the same thing. I thought that he was like the Iceman. Like I thought he maybe had a power where he froze the water. But he did, but he didn't. It wasn't from a superpower. It was because he's so bright. He came up with this device that froze the water. And well, we might as well get into that too. That character is Donnie Gill, and Donnie Gill in the Marvel Universe becomes a supervillain. He becomes a character called Blizzard, who has been kind of in and out of Marvel superheroes' ways. Boy, that was a weird sentence. For a while, he's been a problem, and he keeps ending up in jail, and then he gets out, and then he freezes everything, and he causes these weather things. But I thought that they introduced this character well. I thought that he was a little bit bigger, more known villain than, say, Graviton was. Okay?
Exactly.
And I think it was heading the right direction. Now, other things about this guy, this was... They were sending him to the sandbox. They kept talking about the sandbox. Now, we saw the sandbox before, and we've heard about it. The last time that we were there, to my knowledge, was when Franklin Hall was sent there, who is Gravitron.
Right.
And we saw him, turn into Gravitron at the very end when we saw that hand come through. So now they're sending Blizzard there. He's not Blizzard yet, but they're sending Donnie there to be observed and to make sure he doesn't do anything nuts. This is turning into their Arkham Asylum, basically. They're sending the nuts there, but they don't know these guys are supervillains yet. They just know they have powers, and they're not the good guys. You know what I mean?
Right. And of course, anytime you take a guy that was on the edge and now you're locking him up for supervision, nothing is good is going to come from that.
Yeah, right. But here's what my thought is about this. We now have Gravitron and Blizzard in the sandbox. They don't know what they're dealing with yet here. Okay? Really, the supervillains they have dealt with that we have seen have been major players like in the movies. But these guys, these are kind of second-tier villains that aren't villains yet, but they're all going to be in one spot. So I'm thinking, as this series goes on here, they throw one more supervillain in there. They catch one more, put it in there. The three of them team up, and now the sandbox is a problem. And maybe that's how this season is going to end, with some kind of breakout or something leading to that, so that we see what happens with these characters. Because right now, it's kind of like we're just stockpiling them. But they did that with that first, I can't think of his name, the first hero they found.
Yeah.
It felt like they were going to just kind of stockpile those guys, but then they brought him back and they built a story. I think that's where we're going with this. I think they're going to start building a story out of the guys that are stuck in the sandbox.
Well, and that's the other thing is we've got this repository of kind of 084s, supervillains, what have you, and it's just a problem waiting to happen. Yeah. We know these guys get out. We know these guys in the Marvel Universe become supervillains. Probably amassing these guys is not your best plan.
Right.
But
right.
Anyway, we've gotten to this point. We've seen kind of the genesis of Blizzard.
Now, remember the guy that did the fire? He was a good one too. The bad guy that he was kind of a good guy, and then Centipede got a hold of him, I think, or no, the
lady in
the dress, the flower dress, yeah. She got a hold of him, and they gave him his own costume, and he did the fire thing. Now they made it seem like he blew up at the end there, but I'm telling you, he's still out there.
Well,
is he going to come back? Is he going to do something here?
Right. It's just like Who Shot JR. Eventually he's going to come back.
Nobody in this audience is going to get if they're not our age.
Oh, you can Google it. But
Google Who Shot JR.
And they're like asking their parents, "Daddy, what's JR? Get to your room." But I think that's one of those things they can always write somebody back in. Coulson got killed and was dead for days, and he's back. So,
right,
anything's possible. Anything's
possible at this point.
Yeah. We saw the first kind of creation of the superhero completely blow up a couple episodes later, and he's already back.
Well, he's already back, but he's got the thing in his eye. So
Right.
Now there's another possibility. Is the I can't think what he's called. Not the ventriloquist. Boy, it's been one of those days. The clairvoyant.
Right.
Ventriloquist would be a good one too, wouldn't he? It'd be pretty lame, Basically just throws his voice. Hey, that's not really scary. But the clairvoyant, ooh, maybe he could throw his voice into the clairvoyant. The clairvoyant could use that guy to break out Blizzard and Gravitron.
Oh, yeah.
And then he'll give them their costumes because that's his thing. He likes to give them costumes.
Right. Is that from the clairvoyant or was that from the lady in the flowered dress?
But she works for the clairvoyant.
That's true, but she's the one that knows how to stroke egos. I mean, she even got Coulson kind of involved in something he almost didn't want to do, but she hit that nerve. It's like, you want to know, don't you?
Yeah,
And she got him to do that on his own.
Yeah, I wonder if that's if she has a power of persuasion or something.
Maybe or maybe not, or maybe she just knows, that
she's just that smart. She just knows how to hit that button.
Right. And that's why the clairvoyant has her. I do like the fact that Coulson is immune.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? I wonder, is he immune because of what's happened to him?
I think so.
It could be that, or it could just be that he's that well trained.
I don't think it's the training because they said the clairvoyant can see literally everybody but Coulson.
So it might be just the rewiring that happened with him.
Yeah.
Or it could be what we were saying. He might be not what he appears to be. And he may not even know.
I mean, we won't know until they kind of get to that story.
Yeah. But I did find myself this time satisfied with his story. The fact that they flipped over those cards last week, they showed us about Tahiti, and then this week he seemed kind of tortured by it. And I thought that was really an interesting take. This is something I was talking about with my wife Martha here. Not that she's as into the show as I am, so she has to bear with me through the whole thing. But I was talking about how it's interesting that Coulson in this episode was showing doubt about this a little bit, and that he showed actual doubt about Fury. Because he was kind of doubting the story he was given, and then May said to him, well, where did you get the story? And he says, Fury. And it was like, oh, wait a minute. Does he have doubts about Fury? Because that he has some below the surface doubts about S.H.I.E.L.D., and I'm sure that he'd have his, doubts because it's his boss, but this time I was like, whoa, this might be deeper. And this might be leading to, eventually this team being a little bit more of a rogue team within the organization, kind of the bad company of the organization, which I would be great with.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the direction this needs to go, because it's not just a story about S.H.I.E.L.D., it's a story about this team.
Well, and there's two things that I think support that. The first off was what Coulson said is no more secrets.
Yeah. He said that a lot in this episode. He said it to Sky. He talked about it with May.
We've all heard a bunch of trust the system. Nobody trusts the system, even the team. You know what? I'm laying the cards out at the table, and even, talking, May turns to him and he kind of ignores it at first, but he heard her. Wade and I are sleeping together.
Yeah, right.
It's like, okay, you know what? The quote system isn't working, and this team, whatever's on the table, even May told Coulson not to tell Sky about her story. You know what? It's all about the truth now. This is what happened. You're going to get to know, even if you don't want to know.
Right. I liked how they did that too, when he told her what he knew, and they just played music over it. So he could, it was like we didn't have to hear the story again. We saw it play out, and we also don't know if we were given the whole story. So right. I still feel like there's more there, but this was really satisfying. Finally, something that I was really not caring about made me care.
Right.
The fact that she's a 084, I was like, wait a minute. Suddenly, it got a lot more interesting.
Absolutely. And I may give Nick Fury a little more credit than is due, but I think they're setting up here, and it might be just my own opinion, but I think Nick Fury has set up Coulson and his team to be that rogue element.
Yeah, I think you might be right, too, because I think Nick Fury, he manipulated all through the Avengers. I think he's manipulating here, too.
I think so. They're going to set up to be outside of the system. Remember when Hand had taken over the team, and she said, we've got to get Coulson, but in the end, nobody, no member of the team is isn't replaceable in so many words, and they said Coulson is.
Yeah.
Coulson is worth more than any team member. I think that's what they've set up. I think this is you're looking at the Green Berets, the Delta Force that works outside. The guys that in the Army, you don't get to grow the beard. In the Special Forces, you get to grow the beard, wear the turban, fit in. You don't salute the officers.
Right, you're a different level.
You're a different level, and I think that's what these guys. You've got the super scientists. You've got the, you've got Coulson, which is a reanime human. You've got May, who's like the super force. You've got Wade, who is your 007.
And this also brings up a question, Jack. If what you're saying about Nick Fury, if he's actually manipulating this, did he put? Because according to the pilot of this episode, this season, Coulson is the one that handpicked everybody. Did Fury program him to handpick these people?
Well, that's definitely a possibility. Or did Coulson? There's just no way that Coulson would have known that. Well, like Skye said, everybody else went to the academy. She felt like she hacked her way in.
Right.
However, you can't tell me that somebody in this organization didn't go, oh, Skye's the 084.
Right.
Of course, we've been led to believe in this episode, that nobody except them knows that she's the 084.
Okay, let's talk about this for a second. With Coulson discovering this about Skye and that whole scene playing out, I, up until now, thought that Coulson knew Skye's story. I thought he was not revealing it to her, and I thought that maybe there were questions, but he just wasn't, he wasn't 100%, but I thought he was probably 80%, if not higher. But now, I don't think he knew. I think that he only knew a tiny sliver, and this was all a shock to him.
I think so. It was funny how, in a couple episodes ago, Skye can never find out about this.
Right.
And it's like, it's much worse.
Oh, it's so much worse.
I mean, a whole community died to protecting Skye.
Right. And let alone that, I mean, that right there is what they were really getting at, like that was the big thing. That was what, made her cry and everything. But let's go back to the fact that she's a 084. That means superhero, some kind of powers, alien. We don't know.
Yeah, we have no idea. And what made her, we don't even know what made her 084. They just say that she was.
Right, because a 084 is an unidentified object. It's not like it's, it's an orphaned child. It's a lot more than that.
Right, isn't it?
And why are agents dying to protect her?
Right, well, isn't a 084 more specifically an unidentified alien object?
I don't know about that. We might have to look that one up.
All right. Well, while we do that, let me kind of get back to the fact that, if they had found out that Skye was that 084, if this was in information, Skye would have been in the sandbox already.
Right.
I think this kept her out of the loop.
Well, no, not necessarily. Once again, if the only person who really knows is Nick Fury, that wouldn't mean that she'd be in the sandbox. He might be keeping her out of there because he wants it to be that she's been erased. You know what I mean?
Well, the agent that died trying to squirrel her away, her partner completely disappeared. So there's no information out there to tell anybody in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that this girl even exists, which is the only reason that nobody's been able to find her, even the clairvoyant.
Right.
She would have been sucked into something way before now. But, she does have, everybody's recognized she does have something special, and we have yet to find out what it is. And that's, like you said, set aside everything else. She's a 084.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we don't know what this is. It's pretty cool. This is a cool one. Where some of the things earlier in the season seemed a little like bunk. They didn't seem like something that we were, getting attached to. Now I'm way in. I want to know why she's a 084. I care. I didn't care before.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I was more excited about this episode than any of the previous ones, because it accomplished that finally.
Well, and this was good because in this episode they name-checked all the big baddies. They talked about Hydra, they talked about Centipede, they mentioned AIM. They were throwing them all out there. Like this universe is getting defined now.
Right.
And before, we didn't know. We're like, oh, is Centipede AIM? Is it part of Sword? What is it? Now, they haven't mentioned Sword yet, but I'm telling you, Sword is going to come up here.
Well, it has to. That's that. It's like the every TV series has its internal affairs.
Right.
And Sword kind of, it's not really their intent, but they always kind of operated like that. At an antagonistic level within the group.
Sure.
It's, they may be part of the same team, but they never seemed quite on the same page.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe, if this thing can make it to the second season, which at this point, I mean, people really liked this episode. The last two episodes have gotten very good reviews. It seems like, the interest is growing again, which is good. This is where we need to be. Maybe you don't introduce Sword until next year. Maybe that's what the plan is. Like, let's kind of establish this universe. Let's get us some supervillains going, get a couple of heroes. But then next year, let's really build, make S.H.I.E.L.D. flawed, which brings Rise to Sword, and have that. And then you've got this rogue group in the middle. Have that be the crux of the second season. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. Oh, I'm excited again.
There is, and I was just checking out the Marvel wiki.
Yeah.
And what
does it say? Does it say specifically what a 084 is?
It does not. But what I was looking under Blizzard, and it talks about Blizzard gets caught, and there was a little thing in here, and before he could be remanded to prison, he was rescued by the Rhino.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, we know that can't happen here because the Rhino is owned by Sony, and we're not going to have that crossover.
Right. Now is that a Spider-Man character?
Yeah.
So
and Paul Giamatti's playing him in the new Spider-Man movie.
Yeah. So that may not be. I was kind of excited to say, well, that might be a way to get him in, but I guess that's kind of a dead end.
Not necessarily, though. I have heard that the TV rights are different than the movie rights. So there is a possibility of some crossover stuff, but, they might not even need to get to that. They might not even need to bother with that at this point. Give it a couple of years, see what happens. Maybe they can build a relationship where they're crossing over between studios and then let it happen. But for now, like I said, we can have the superhero guy with the thing in his eye break out these guys, and that's where your breakout actually happens.
And I think the biggest complaint that people have had right now is the lack of the superheroes. But what we're doing right now is we're establishing the history of the villains, the supervillains, and you can't have supervillains without superheroes, and vice versa.
Well, and I think we're also finding out, if Skye is a 084, which she is, could she be a superhero? Now, I had an interesting thought on this. It doesn't match Marvel history. So you people out there that are, real strict about your Marvel history, you already know this is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're playing with it all over the place. They're changing things up. There is a character that Skye could turn out to be that I was thinking about this week. Have you ever heard of the character Mockingbird?
I remember the name.
Okay. Mockingbird was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. And she was in the New Avengers. I think she was actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think that she was tied to that AKA Jessica Jones, that Netflix one that they're going to do the series about. I think that she was actually kind of tied to that. Like she might be part of that, but she's this super smart agent for S.H.I.E.L.D. And I'm thinking, I wonder, she was kind of a superhero probably probably one that people don't really know, but she could be turned into that character very easily on here. And one of the reasons I'm thinking about this, I remember, and you guys could completely call me on this. I could be completely wrong, but if I remember right, a while ago, there was talk about a TV series for Mockingbird. Before there was talk of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, before this whole Netflix thing happened, there were a couple of these Marvel shows. There was one they were talking about bringing back the Hulk. There was talk about doing one about Mockingbird, which would actually take place, I believe, at S.H.I.E.L.D. Academy, or at least start out there.
Oh, wow.
So this all could be a tie-in from that. There was actually, I actually read recently, you know how I keep talking about She-Hulk and how I think that would make an awesome show. I actually read that there was even talk about doing a She-Hulk series a few years ago, and because the Hulk movie kind of bombed, they pulled that off the docket.
Oh, wow.
You know what other one I read about this week was, because I was kind of researching these about the shows, because I was looking up this Mockingbird thing. Like, I was like, I kind of remember this. Of course, I didn't find anything about Mockingbird, but I did find that there was talk about developing a Cloak and Dagger series for ABC Family. Now, that was something that I said here. You could have Cloak and Dagger appear on this, and that's when you start bringing superheroes into this, but you don't have to make it a single story.
No, you don't. And I wonder if they could use Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as a repository for some of these, some of these storylines, because you've got to figure that they've put so much into some of these things that they've already done, maybe small story arcs on each of these.
Sure.
And boom, you just, you've already
got
got
a place
the material
for it. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and the thing is, since they have the deal with Netflix and they're doing those shows, they own these TV properties. Why would you not try it here? See if the ratings tank or if the character just doesn't work, dump it. But if it works, spin it off, do 10 episodes on Netflix. Boom. You've got an audience. You've got another franchise that you could work with. There's all sorts of stuff you could do. I'll tell you another, we might as well talk about news a little bit while we're doing this. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, the next episode is called Tracks. And everyone keeps talking about how Stan Lee is on that. Okay. I didn't know if you knew that, but Stan Lee is going to be guesting on the next episode. It's called TRACKS, all periods, just like S.H.I.E.L.D. does. And they haven't announced what character he is. Now, I am wondering, I don't think he's going to be a cameo. I think this is their time where they're going to use Stan Lee somehow. And what I was thinking, I had two characters in mind for him. One is the clairvoyant.
Oh, wow.
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, that
he only has to appear for short bits here and there. But what an awesome way to use Stan Lee. The other one is, now Quinn made an appearance in this one, and Quinn is turning out to be this really important character that is kind of fostering these bad guys, right?
Right. And of course, who is he working for?
The clairvoyant, right?
Right.
Which also ties him to Centipede. Okay. Now in the comics, there is a character that I was thinking Quinn is kind of aping, okay? Because Quinn's not in the comics.
Okay.
But there is a character who lives outside of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s territories. He's this really rich character. He's an industrialist that kind of finances the creation of bad guys, okay? Basically. And his name is Justin Hammer. Now, he's an older guy, kind of a Hugh Hefner-y type guy in the comics. I'm wondering, could that be who Stan Lee is? Because he looks like this guy, and I could see him showing up. They may not tell us what Justin Hammer does, but what if his character's name is Justin Hammer? And then we find out, they briefly meet him, but he's the one behind Quinn, because these things have layers.
Yeah. I guess it depends on, what kind of acting that Stan Lee can do. If he could really kind of come off as that supervillain, then I would put them in there. If he's kind of like in between, then Hammer would probably be a better fit for him.
Yeah, I think either one would be an interesting one. Now, this is purely speculation, but this next episode is about them chasing down the clairvoyant. And if Hammer exists in this universe, Hammer could be part of that. I know that Quinn is in the next one, too. So they are getting closer. Now, Quinn could be this universe's version of Hammer, and that still opens the door for Stan Lee to be the clairvoyant. I hope they don't just waste him and just have him be, some guy on the train that goes, "Hey, that's my seat," and we go, "Oh, great, that was Stan Lee." But I don't think that's what it's going to be. I think they're going to use him, do something with him here.
Yeah, I think that's what they're going to do. At least I hope. I don't think they would just kind of advertise him doing a character and we only get to see him for about 10 seconds.
That would be terrible.
Right, that wouldn't even be worth the promotional materials. It would be more one of those like, look for Stan Lee, not, hey, we're going to, put him in the storyline.
Right. And that just, that would be a real cop out, especially to what they got going right now.
So speaking of the storyline, at what point did you feel like, okay, Donnie is the force behind the little accidents I
thought it immediately at the pool. And then when they were sitting there and they were saying how smart he was, I was like, okay, this kid is causing this.
Right.
And then when he froze, now this is what's interesting. When he froze, it didn't make sense to me until later when we found out that really what they were doing with this freezing was baiting Fitz.
Right, because,
then it really made sense.
Right. Just the faith in Fitz that this was part of their plan, that Fitz is that good.
Yeah, he walked in, he saw it, he gave him a solution. That was awesome.
This kid was like off the charts on the IQ and really didn't see anybody even in his league.
Right.
But just based on Fitz's reputation was luring him in to solve his problem. It was like, man, that speaks volumes for Fitz.
Yeah, well, they did make a reference to Fitz and Simmons being like two of the smartest to ever graduate from the academy.
Yeah, but we really don't get to see that. They really haven't showcased these guys other than the fact that they pull out some neat toys.
Well, they pull out neat toys, but they do some amazing things. It's just, I think that now we're getting a little bit more perspective on how smart they are. And I think that's important. We need to know now how elite these guys are, because when we first saw Ward, we really got the indication that he was pretty unique and pretty special. Now they've kind of, played that down a little bit, but he is pretty spectacular. He is James Bond, Now we know May is spectacular, Sky is unique and spectacular, and Fitz and Simmons are top of the game.
Yeah, and I think really from the first few episodes, I just kind of got the feeling that, they were just kind of the nerds of the group and all the real agents kind of go do the work. And now
I think that was a misstep for them not revealing this early enough, like making us think that in the beginning.
But it's solved now. Hopefully they'll kind of go on for that. I really
keep
thought
building on that, sure.
When Donnie froze, I suspected, that at the pool. The next step was when Donnie started showing Fitz all the little gadgets that he was building. Okay, all right, now you've just told me, this is, that little ice thing has just got to be another one of his gadgets.
Okay. How awesome was that when he's like, wow, these are really impressive. These projects are really great. And then Donnie goes, well, these aren't the impressive projects.
Right.
Oh, man. That thing, that machine was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was. And, and the fact that, even so, Fitz was like Fitz is on a whole other plane. But when Donnie froze for me, it was like, okay, that's the classic TV, kind of misdirection. Okay. Yeah. Now I know he did it because there was no way that anybody was really interested in this and getting at this kid. There was no other connection other than the fact that, oh, well, Donnie got froze. It can't be Donnie.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Nobody.
Yeah, no, and the thing is, I don't think you were supposed to just fall for some of that stuff. I think that you really were supposed to be like uncovering these things and like going along for the ride. I think it was just a really well played episode.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think if they go more in this direction, I think we're going to be in for a real treat.
Yeah, I do too. I want to bring up my favorite line in the episode because I wrote down a couple of them because I thought they were good. Like when he said, "These aren't my big ideas," I thought that was good, and I loved when they caught Lumley. And the first thing he says is, "This is about the baby girl, isn't it?" I'm like, oh, Wait, and he goes, thank God, it's S.H.I.E.L.D. It's like, wait a minute, you're chasing this guy down. You're thinking he's a bad guy. He's saying, thank God, it's S.H.I.E.L.D. But those weren't my favorite lines. My favorite line was when they were making fun of Fitz. And he goes, you'll be jealous, you wrinkly old hags.
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious. It was funny enough that I went back to watch him say it again because I'm like, that is really funny that he said that. And with his accent, it was a little hard to understand, but man, what a great line. And it was so well played, you know?
Yeah, it's like I say, every element was just well done.
Yeah. Even Coulson giving the courtesy call at the end to Quinn. It's like, you know, when Quinn picks up the phone and, you know, it was totally a courtesy call. Like, yeah, I'm just calling to let you know, I'm on to you. I'm Agent Coulson. Here's a courtesy call. Stay out of my zones.
Right.
That was really good. Now, there was another reference in this I've got more news too. I got big news. Lots of stuff happened this week.
All right, we'll finish. So what's the reference?
Yeah. The other reference, Fitz made a reference to Professor Vaughn when he was like, oh yeah, we all fall asleep in Professor Vaughn's class.
Right.
I looked up Professor Vaughn. Professor Vaughn is Wendell Vaughn, who becomes Quasar.
Oh.
So he is actually an important character. It said in the thing that he was a lowly S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and then he got these quantum bands, and that's what it was something that he was trying to protect things from getting into AIM's hands. And he used those then to become this character of Quasar. And Quasar's a pretty awesome character. And here's the other thing. Quasar kind of leads us into the character Nova, is kind of part of that world. And Nova is prime to show up either on this or to be its own series. So this was a really interesting little, reference to somebody. I looked up any of the names that they said in here, and that was one that stuck out to me. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh, he's tied to S.H.I.E.L.D. He was recruited by Fury. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and there's a name. We didn't get to see him, but we heard his name. So right. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and of course,
and his middle name is Elvis. You got to like that.
Oh yeah, Elvis lives. We know it.
That's right. So yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, you go first.
Well, I had news, but we can cover anything else you want.
No. I say go to the news.
All right, let's go to the news. Well, okay, we already talked about Stan Lee being on the next one. Two big things dropped this week about S.H.I.E.L.D. So coming up this season, because this is all we know of is this season, they are going to do another character. They're bringing Bill Paxton in, who, you know who Bill Paxton is, right?
I don't remember.
Aliens. His famous line is "Game over, man."
Oh yeah.
He's in True Lies. He's the one that pees his pants when Arnold holds him over the reservoir. Bill Paxton's awesome, and he is going to be on S.H.I.E.L.D. And this is what's great. He's playing. I think his name is Agent Garrett. Yeah, it's Garrett, Agent John Garrett.
Right.
Who, Jack, you have talked about how you only had a few Marvel comic books before, and you had the Elektra Assassin series, the original Frank Miller one.
Right.
John Garrett is a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent with the cowboy hat that's featured in that Elektra series.
Oh, no kidding.
He's an awesome character. I am really excited to have him in there. And at some point, he does become a cyborg. So this could be the first, hey, here's a character that could cross over into the cinematic and be really, really cool, especially since they got the rights back to Daredevil, which means they have the rights to Elektra, which means we could get that Elektra story with John Garrett at some point. How awesome would that be?
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm so excited. And they have him on for 4 episodes, but that doesn't mean it's like 4 and done. That means he's doing 4 this season. He could be brought back. He's actually a buddy of Coulson's, and he's got a very similar kind of story to Coulson's. And he does get blown apart and rebuilt as a cyborg at some point. So, I mean, there's a lot going on here that could really be interesting and tie into this.
Yeah, I think the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. have to kind of, have to come up with something similar to the eyeball. We've got that technology. They've got to have some way of putting these guys back together.
Right. Well, I think that's where we're going to see Sword and that come in, if I understand how that works right. I think we're going to see that kind of play into this, and that's where we're headed. Now, the other huge piece of news, and this is one that I talked about a few weeks ago, and I could not be happier about it. I've mentioned before that one of my favorite characters from Thor is Sif, and I loved her in the Dark World. I thought she didn't get enough screen time. I've said she would make a great character for a series on Netflix. Sif is going to be on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this season.
Oh, awesome.
That is really, really awesome news. I am really excited to have her on there. I want them to use this not just to have, with a quick cameo by the actor, but let's see what the reaction is, see if people are into it, which they're going to be, okay? They liked her in the movie. I loved her in the movie. Now tie her in. Bring her back. Now you can have an Asgardian showing up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So you don't see Thor, but you've got Sif. You can do a stiff sword. Stiff.
You could do a stiff sword.
You could do a Sif storyline. Or you could do like its own series, like spin it off into its own series. I mean, there's a lot you could do with this. So once again, really excited. Great news that dropped this week.
Oh, absolutely. Just everything seems to kind of really be kind of coming together for all the Marvel storylines, where this show's going. And, so many of their projects, we're seeing the culmination of some of the Netflix things, a couple more of the movies coming out. I think it's a really exciting time for Marvel.
Well, and there were those missteps at the beginning, and I think we were pretty positive through this, and we were saying we're hanging in there, and we could see where things are going. I think that all the stuff we were talking about is where it's going. I think we're starting to see that now, which is super exciting, and I'm actually getting surprised, which I love. I mean, I was really surprised by stuff with Sky this week. I was surprised when I was reading some of that news that like Garrett is going to be on. I'm like, wow, this is what I want. This is awesome.
It is. I'm just looking forward to more. I can't.
Well, and what's going to happen? They're going to, Captain America is going to premiere, and they're going to do a tie-in for that. What's that tie-in going to be?
Who knows? There's so many places you can go. Like you say, talking about Quasar ties in with Captain America. And the Avengers.
Right.
I couldn't even begin to guess where any of that would go to. We're just gonna have to wait for that one.
Yeah. So there we go. Just really cool news. I know there's more, but that's where I want to kind of stick it this week. We'll leave it right there because we could get into all the X-Men stuff. And speaking of that, I think we need to do a special episode. I watched The Wolverine. Have you watched The Wolverine yet?
I have not. It was on my list, and it was one of those things that kind of kept slipping away.
Okay. You know what? There's a hiatus until, February 4th? So we have time to do an extra episode in the middle here. Can you watch Wolverine this week? And maybe next week we can do one just about the Wolverine?
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds great to me.
Let's do that because I don't want to spoil anything, but it's definitely worth talking about. And we can kind of talk about Days of Future Past and some of the other X-Men news because there's lots of stuff. And there's a lot going on in the comics, too, and we can kind of touch on that. So the next episode will be a little bit off of S.H.I.E.L.D., more Marvel-centric. We're going to talk about the Wolverine. We're going to talk about the comics. There's big news in the Spider-Man universe. We got to talk about that. And, Jack, you don't have to know that stuff. I'll talk about it and fill you in. But definitely watch the Wolverine so we can talk about that.
Awesome. That'll be great.
Awesome. I think that's it, unless you have anything more you want to talk about.
No, I think that kind of brings us into the show, the news, and kind of the directions that we're going.
Yeah, so let's wrap it up. You can find this show and all the shows from Southgate Media Group at www.southgatemediagroup.com. You can also find us on iTunes. Please do. Find us on Stitcher. We're on there. Subscribe both places. It helps. It doesn't cost you anything. We need reviews. So please go on. 5 stars would be greatly appreciated. So we need reviews. And then if you want to write something, it really helps us out. And it really encourages us too, because we're having a lot of fun with this, but we want to know that you're having fun with it too. You can follow me on Twitter at rsouthgate. And you can also...
You can find me at Jay Wingrosky, and you can even listen to our podcasts on some tweaked audio headphones.
Oh, yeah, we've got sponsors.
Follow our link and use the Southgate is the...
Yeah.
What's the code?
So we might as well do that. Tweaked Audio make awesome headphones. They're the earbuds. So most listeners are listening through their phone or listening, on an iPod or something, and you're using headphones. And those headphones that come from iTunes, the Apple ones,
Right.
not iTunes, but the Apple ones that come with them, they don't fit in the ear great. They don't have great sound. Tweaked Audio sound awesome. So we were super excited to get them as a sponsor because we love them. And here's what happens. As a sponsor, you can click on the link at our website, at southgatemediagroup.com. It's on every one of the pages. You just find the thing. It says Tweaked Audio. Click on it. The coupon code you use is Southgate. Real easy to remember. And their web address is tweakedaudio.com. So if you don't want to go to the website, just go directly to them. But if you use that coupon code, this is the best part. You get a third off.
Wow.
I mean, it's not like, hey, 10% off. It's a third off of the price, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Tweaked Audio came through for us. They're supporting us. They love our shows. We love them. Show some love to them, and it helps us all out. So good call on that, Jack. The other one we want to mention is if you go to our website, we also got another sponsor, which is audible.com. And on our next episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about audible.com, but they do audiobooks. It's done through Amazon. We love it. We listen to audiobooks around this house constantly. I mean, constantly. Audible is on fire at this house. If you're a fan of podcasts, if you're a fan of this type of entertainment, you definitely should subscribe to Audible. That one's even easier. Go to our website, click on the link. It takes you right to Audible. You get a 30-day trial, and it's a free trial. If at that point you decide it's not for you, just cancel. If you like it, though, stay in there and have a subscription. I mean, it's fantastic. We have a subscription, and what happens is every month you have a certain amount of audiobooks that you can just download. So, if it takes you a month to listen through to one, which is common for most people, great. The next month you get your next book. If you're faster than that, you get a higher subscription. Or if you're like we are around here, Molly, my daughter, listens to, basically a new audiobook every 2 days. You can really set that thing on fire, which is what we're doing around here. So, boy, there's the business. We got business out of the way.
All right. Well, just like the episode wrapped up with Blizzard creating his little ice crystals in the air, I think that's where we should leave it.
All right. Well, let's do that. Thank you for listening, everybody. This has been brought to you by Southgate Media Group. I am refrozen Rob Southgate, and with me,
Jagged Jacqueline Grosky.
That's it, everybody. Until next time, hey, watch the Wolverine so you know what we're talking about. That's it. Enough said.
Enough said.
If you would like to donate to help pay for this and other Southgate Media Group podcasts, simply go to our website, southgatemediagroup.com, and click on the donate button. It can be as little as $1 or, well, as much as you want. Help keep this fun going by supporting this and our other shows. Thanks again for listening, everyone. You're the best fans in the world.